Welcome to the YoggNation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the YoggNation platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast explores the themes of bullying, self-awareness, and the power of our inner spirit, including the silent battles we all face. Join me every week as I invite high-profile guests as we explore how adversity shapes us, how gratitude lifts us, and how we can all uncover the inner strength that we all have within ourselves. Join the conversation. I appreciate you listening in. And today, my next guest is a dear friend of mine, entrepreneur and technology executive, Gilbert Martin. Beyond serving leadership positions, helping companies with their cloud strategy, he's deeply passionate about community service and giving back. As October is National Bullying Awareness Month, Gilbert was one of my chief guests where Riani and I, my daughter, created and held a community event in Morgan Hill, California, back in October of 2021, discussing solutions to help our young men and women overcome its negative effects. I can still feel the weight of Gilbert's bullying story that day. It still resonates with me today, and today you'll understand why. But with gratitude, welcome to the podcast, Gilbert.
Thank you, Yogi. It's an honor to be on the podcast. I appreciate you inviting me over, and I'm excited to just dig in deeper into my story here, or our stories here.
On that note, let's dig deep. Can you please retell that story that you shared with the community on that Saturday morning?
Yeah, absolutely. So, bullying, as you know, it's something that I think I've dealt with my whole life, right? And it started really at home with my stepfather, who constantly reminded me that I wasn't his son. Kicked me out when I was 15, and I had to live alone at the age of 15. So independence to me at the age of 15, and I'll cut the timeline short, but had my first child at 19 while starting a career and having a family, and then bought my first home at 21. So if I can do it, you guys can do it. You probably don't notice now, but I was a really thin, skinny, nerdy kid, very easy to pick on, but that's kind of what happened. I was just my anatomy and my body until I developed later in life, and it was after high school, unfortunately. But what kept me grounded and through it all was just my personality and my positive outlook of life and my can-do attitude, and that's really what kicked in my survival instincts.
Is that something you learned, or was that part of your inner spirit?
I think it's always been part of my inner spirit to be a positive person that can persevere and always wanting to help, right? And it's always just been who I am, I think, right? But as you when you're young, you're still kind of figuring out who you are. You're going through challenges of your own, like such as I did, and bullying just is part of I'll call it society, unfortunately, right? And it's just the way it is.
Right. I consider just a rite of passage.
Yeah, it is. It is a rite of passage. But through those experiences, because I think everything is an experience for me. Failure is a word. Bullying is an experience. Failure is an experience. They're all experiences for myself. That's at least that's how I word it, because how would you learn? How would you grow with it without it, right? I think the inner spirit of positivity is what I like to share, and hope everybody can get there, because I think not having that.
But what does that mean to you, though?
So to me, it's just keeping the positive attitude. I believe in God. I think God is, our higher power, but He reminds us that, hey, look, everybody may go through a bad day. The bullier may be experiencing things at home as well. We don't really understand people, but I think if we try to exercise empathy and sympathy towards these individuals, I think we could get ahead and use the positivity and energy you have to bring them, to get out of those situations and get on through to your own path.
And I think a lot of that, though, is kind of the support system that you have to help you overcome? Because I don't think that you outgrow your bullying by yourself, in my opinion. Do you agree?
I agree. Yeah, I do gotta say I didn't have a big support system when I was growing up, but I think community around me definitely helped me. And I'll get into a little bit about the story, but it's I think community, family definitely is a big help.
Well, and you wanted to tell a story about.
Let's talk a little bit about this little girl who I knew, and she was being bullied in school. She kept getting picked on at school, so therefore, we don't know why she really got bullied by this little boy, but just this little boy would never leave her alone. She would, maybe he liked her, maybe he didn't. Boys at that age are a little bit undecisive, and they show maybe the way they like women or girls by bullying them. So maybe that's what it was, or maybe it wasn't. But
And I'm sorry, how old was this little girl that you speak of?
I think she was in elementary school, or right about almost middle school, right? So then therefore, you know, this little boy kept bullying her. So then
And I'm sorry, you were classmates with this individual.
I was classmates, but I didn't know her at the time, right? So I think we were in middle school. We were going to the same school, but I didn't know her, which is really really funny. I'll tell the story at the end. But so eventually she got fed up and confided with her older brother, and they came up with a plan. So the plan was the next day she would walk home like a normal routine, and right on cue, the kid started harassing her again, pulling her hair, mocking her, etc. But this time, when she got when the boy got closer, they had pre-decided on a spot with her brother, right, to give the signal. So her when she got closer to the spot, she gave the signal to her brother, and her brother calmly came out and asked the boy to join him around, a little bit to the side. So once that happened, her brother had a conversation with this young man, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but he pretty much told her, "Hey, leave her alone, or you're gonna have some bad consequences to deal with." Right? Uh, I'm putting it lightly here, but you can imagine the words he probably told the little boy at that age. So the little boy panicked and got really scared that he literally peed his pants, right? So that was,
So the macho exterior evaporated.
exactly. So, fast forward, the little girl, is my wife, right? And her older brother, right? And her older brother is now a homicide detective for the San Jose PD. So funny, right? How things work out. She's my wife, and her brother's a police officer that happened to protect her then, and is now doing the same for our citizens of San Jose, California.
That's one of the themes I want to explore as well. Is there's one element of you being the bullier, or not you in particular, but the victim, so to speak. But then there's the other side of the coin where a person is protecting you against a bully. And I think that example just showcased um, the heart that your brother-in-law had.
Yeah, and he continues to help people today, right? And I think that's what satisfies him about his job, because funny enough, he used to be a tech person, and he left the tech world to become a police officer, and that was his calling.
And you stayed in tech.
And I stayed in tech. Yes.
Well, let's unravel that journey. How did you get started in tech? And you also have another interesting story as before you hit 20.
Yeah, so couple different stories, right? I At the age of 19, I was at a boot camp at Evergreen Valley College here in San Jose, and it was sponsored by Sun Microsystems, which at the time, I'm talking in the 2000s or before 2000s, Sun Microsystems was the Google of our time, right? Or the Metas, or the, I'll call it Twitters, or ByteDance, right? ByteDance to TikTok of our time. So while I was going to school, I finished this summer boot camp with I'll call it top three in my class, and it enabled me to, actually get. I was the first one in my class to get a job at Sun Microsystems. Funny enough, right? So it was just a game changer. It was a new experience. It was a different thing that, as a first generation Latino, you're just experiencing all these different cultures, and you're different, this different world. Think of it like you opened a book, and the book happened to be a tech book, and it told a story. And the story was, hey, Gilbert, you could really improve yourself by, reading this book and all the details of the book. And the details happen to be all this technology that you could unlock, but you have to put your mind to it and a lot of hard work. And then at the end of the book, you're going to prosper into something. We don't know what that something is, but it's it's going to be better than what you have now, right? So it's kind of similar to like Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you've ever read that book, it's it's similar to that feeling, that mind that makes you explore and gives you the potential of what you can do in this life. So let me pause there.
But Gilbert, that's interesting. I never really thought of opening up a Unix book back in the day. Would tell this story about this is what your potential could be. I mean, number one, I'm not a coder, I'm not a tester, I'm not a developer. From a coding standpoint, I want to shy away from that. But this is a drag. This is what I just have to do to pass the class. You looked at this textbook, or probably even education, in a different manner.
I did, yeah. Like I said, I was 19, and then, you know just to add to that, right? Like I didn't understand the tech world. I didn't know it. It was my first time. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I don't know if it was good or bad. So it was a risk, right? But I've always been a risk taker. I think, again, my inner spirit and positive vibe of not having that affect me, as I grew up, and as I had my own family at a very young age as well. It just motivated me to be the best I can be, from a father figure, from a provider figure, and from, I'll call it a mentor or guidance figure, right? Because as you have children, and as you develop your own life, you kind of reflect on those moments of, hey, yes, I never met my real dad. I had a really shitty stepfather, but it's up to you as a person to decide how you're going to be. Just because you had a shitty life, or excuse me, or a shitty start to life, doesn't mean that you have to be the same. And you can show that by, building your own family, and, giving what you experience to your own family.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think also what family does is it gives you that opportunity to teach.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess we all still learn to a certain degree. But tell me more about being a minority in tech. What was that like?
Oh, well, as a first generation, again, Latino, I'm gonna keep bringing that up. I know I talk a lot about that, but breaking in.
Being proud of your roots, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, yeah, definitely proud of our roots, and breaking into tech was like walking into a completely different universe, right? When you start, didn't see many Latinos from an engineering role, right? You saw a lot of them in other areas of the company, such as like facility security, custodial, in other areas, but not the engineering world, right? So it was a little bit of a culture shock too for me.
How so?
Well, it's hard understanding the people, learning new, I'll call it corporate lingo. People really, I was really young, and they don't take you serious. I don't think that's a Latino thing. That's just a young thing, right? A young,
Yeah, it's earning respect.
it is earning respect, but even as a young person trying to earn respect and being Latino is a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit harder. But I don't know. That's just because maybe I went through that. But just trying to understand the culture of who you're around, the people you're around, the environment you're around. It's just a different feeling from what you're brought up to be, right? You're not exposed to those environments. You're not brought up like that, right? So it's just a different universe to me.
Did your family and friends encourage you, or what was their reaction as you went into this world that at the time not very many Latinos entered?
Yeah, so my family, my close family, or my own family encouraged me. My wife, my wife then, when we were young, and her family definitely encouraged me. My mom and my stepdad, I think we have this Latino culture where they think you're above them once you get jobs like this. And they'll tell jokes like, oh, you think you're all that, or you make more money than me, or hey, you how much money do you make? And it's another form of,
I think the comedian George Lopez, dialed in on.
yeah, the comedian George Lopez will be like, hey, you think you're all that, you're all, anyway. So it's very much true what George Lopez talks about. Obviously he's a lot funnier than I am, but yeah, it's very true, right? But I mean, the first question my stepdad asked me was, hey, how much money do you make? And you think you make more than I do, so you think you're a badass, right? So again,
How do you answer that question? Because again, I'm trying to understand from what you're saying, bringing that context to today in terms of perhaps what discussions families are having. Maybe not to the, I'll just say extreme, right? With the conversation you had with your stepdad, but in terms of how perhaps you've stayed grounded in light of maybe this, I'm not going to call it criticism, but just something that is uncomfortable for you to hear. How did you get through that? Because I think there's a valuable lesson to the listeners here, Gilbert.
so yeah, when you're 19, I just ignored the question, right? Because I just changed the subject, ignore the question. But I try to stay grounded because you never know in life what's going to happen to you or what can happen next. Yes, there's a lot of jobs out there. Yes, there's a lot of, you know, I'll call it world events that you cannot control, such as, economy, you know, the crashes of the stock market, the crashes of the housing market. But anyways, though, what keeps me grounded is just staying true to myself and remembering where I grew up and where I came from, because that's just all of the difficult challenges that never go away.
If it's not one thing, it's another. And I think we all go through that in life. And no matter what stage, no matter what profession or age or background.
So it keeps me grounded. It just again, I don't, we don't need to. I guess I've always followed this model of, why do I don't need to do that. What do I get out of that? I don't get anything, right? But
But I think the background wall board that you have reads "Live Simply." So it looks like that's where all of this inner spirit and self awareness comes from, or part of it at least.
yeah, living simply is I saw that at a local store, and I told my wife, hey, we gotta get that, because that's definitely how we try to live simply. We share our happiness and our roots through food and family, and good company and drinks. And I like to continue that with friends like yourself, and I want to share that with the whole world. Like that's really what I'd really love for us as a community, as a world, as a, to just, share and be together and yeah, and live. Because you never know, life's short.
That's true. But also, I think for you, Gilbert, you have that added perspective of being a Latino in the Bay Area culture where there's a lot of meritocracy and seeing what success looks like and how to emulate that. And I think that's certainly something that I've learned from you, as I'm sure you've learned from others, your peers in the tech world.
Yeah, absolutely. What can I say to that? Yeah, like I said, it's part. I like to bring the culture where I'm at, and and just stay humble and live simple, and just have, keep growing the, I'll call it, the community that's around myself, right, and around us.
And speaking of your community, is there something that you would like to tell the listening audience in Spanish, perhaps around these themes of gratitude, self awareness, inner spirit bullying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could, I just, in Spanish, I would want to say, a todos los que están escuchando, y quieren o tienen esa meta para llegar a un lugar diferente, pudiéramos, que sigan adelante, que lean los libros, que abran la vista, que abran la mente, que cambien la mente, y la mente los llevará muy lejos. So what I said in a nutshell is, to the community out there, if you want to change your life, and if you want to change your mindset, it's about your mindset. It's about digging into the books and changing your mindset so that you can achieve greatness, or you can achieve things that you haven't achieved, or maybe your family hasn't achieved. And that's what changed my mindset. That's how I started.
I think the root of that, though, comes with education, having that not desire and knowledge to keep on learning.
I think you said it earlier, like we're always evolving and we're always learning, so keep the learning going, at any age. I think my only request is to exercise empathy and sympathy, because you don't know what the other person is going through. So if you could help understand what they're going through, they may open up to you, and they may, that may be a foundation for a long lasting relationship or friendship.
And I'm sure that's a very poignant theme that you share with you as you mentor others.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I look for, as I mentor people or I mentor anyone, I look for people that really want to improve themselves, their lifestyle, their careers, and it starts with the want, and it starts with the ambition, and it starts with the hard work, right? So if you could do all three, great. But if you could do two of the three, cool. If you could do one of the three, awesome. But just start. That's all I got to say. Just start.
It's hard, though, playing devil's advocate.
It's hard, but it's not impossible. And it's coming from a person that,
Oh my goodness. I forgot that you were living on your own at 15. How do you do that?
it's challenging. It was very challenging at that time. Very.
But where did you live? What did you do? How did you support yourself?
So I was effectively a transient, living friend to friend, until one of my friend's mom actually took me in, and then, essentially I went to school and I had a job, and I didn't really have any extracurricular activities because I had to learn.
What about the emotional trauma that you had to overcome?
Emotionally, it was lonely. It was very lonely. There was a lot of different directions that you could have gone through. I was exposed to gangs. I was exposed to drugs. I was exposed to women and girls. I mean, there could have been a lot of different directions. So I really do think God was watching out for me. But it was a very lonely time. I'm just gonna say that.
Did you have anyone besides your friend's mom that took you in?
Uh, Not really, actually. No, I didn't have anyone. Like I said, like I didn't know my real father. My mom kept me from family. She didn't have family herself, so it was a very hard time. Let me just put it that way. And like I said, I remember those times, and I don't forget them.
And did you draw back on your faith in God to help get you through this?
I did, but it got stronger when I met my wife because she was a follower, and her family was very supportive. Her family was a family I've always wanted that I never had, and looking back to that now, it was just meant to be.
What an incredible story. Wow. I mean, of all of the guests that I've had, again, David Farias from Nogales High School, he grew up fatherless, yet he still had that support system living with his mom, grandmother, and great grandmother. He did say that life was tough, but his mindset, kind of like yours, Gilbert, was he had food on the table, he had a roof over his shoulder, and it was up to him to determine how he was going to architect his life. And I think that, and I just hope that for the citizens of YoggNation that hear this message, whether they are perhaps living in an apartment, living in a comfortable 4-bedroom house or McMansion, that these themes that you bring up, Gilbert, stay true to them, as you're a perfect example of what success and hard work look like. I would say that you're one of the embodiments of what this podcast really aims to do, which is overcoming adversity in spite of the challenges, life challenges, oh my goodness, from what you've shared, what you've gone through, that enabled you to, develop your character and strengthen your character, the resiliency, the resolve.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's those are memories and experiences that you don't forget. And as a again as a person that have experienced that and went through that, and want to give back to the community, you know, like you mentioned, this young gentleman went through kind of a similar process or similar experience. But again, it's up to you as a person if you want to succeed and if you want to change, and if you are open to you know books and hard work, you can get it done, right? Again,
Even in today's social media, technology driven society,
yeah,
it's hard.
it also makes it easier. Like I learned a lot of stuff on YouTube University, and I continue to learn, right? So, when we first started, we didn't have YouTube University, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have social media. And they're gonna say, "Well, you're a different gen, right?" Obviously, I don't understand Gen Zers today, meaning that's what they tell me, like, "Hey, you don't understand us." Maybe I don't, maybe we won't, but again, even with all of that, like you could still learn and you could still do things, right? It's just about pushing yourself a little bit to get them done.
Well, that pushing yourself, but also having the right environment, whether that is your parents, a teacher to help guide you. I just don't happen to believe that all of us are blessed with that inner spirit, that inner drive. And so there needs to be some sort of catalyst, right, that brings the best out in you. And it's not even just, I would say, education. It's also something that you're passionate about, your endeavor, whether it's, picking up a tennis racket, playing a musical instrument, it doesn't matter. As long as, you cultivate those talents over time, that comes back to you in ways that you probably didn't expect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, it's If you like it, you're gonna set your mind to it. You're gonna do it, and you're gonna get it done. And your environment. Yes, it helps, and it is true that most likely you will be successful or more successful if the environment is correct. But I just told my story, and my environment wasn't the best of of at the time, and I still I'll just put it this way: I oversaw the forest, and I saw this beautiful waterfall past the forest. So that's what I had in mind, and that's how I continue to.
Yeah, I guess it is that inner spirit translates to a positive spirit.
Positivity can go far, right? And I try to continue to have that positivity.
Yeah, and I think that's irrespective of age.
Yes, for sure. I'm 45, and I feel like I'm still the same person, just a little bit more experienced.
Well, and with the bigger guns too, by the way, instead of being that scrawny kid.
And yes, not as scrawny as I once was.
Gilbert, it was an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for everything that you shared, and for the listeners out there. I mean, I certainly became very inspired by what he shared. Through our friendship, I forgot that he was kicked out of the house at 15. And can you imagine having to go through this 7 days a week? I can't imagine that. So I think Gilbert shares a very important message here that all of us can learn from, which is, again, the point of this podcast is for the listener to be inspired, to become educated, to become entertained, but more importantly, though, rediscover something about yourself. And so I think Gilbert has proven that based on some of the finer points he shared. So, Gilbert, thank you very much. You've got the last word.
Again, thank you, Yogi, for having me on your show. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for letting me share my story with your audience. I really hope that this can help at least one person out there, that maybe can, maybe struggling, or maybe is looking for a path, or maybe for a change in direction or a change in life, right? And again, we all have the power, we all have the authority and the leadership to do it. So it's just look deep inside you, and you can get it done. And again, in Spanish, I'll just call out to all of the parents out there that are first generation. Like, trust your son, your daughter, and give them all the support you can. So, por favor, apoyen a sus hijos y a sus hijas, y enséñenles una dirección que puedan salir adelante, y sí se va, y sí se va a poder, y sí se va a mirar. Thank you, Yogi. Appreciate it.
Love it, even though I don't understand a damn word that you said because I took French.
All I said is, like, first generation parents have this, I'll call it, they don't understand how it works sometimes. I just said, hey, support your son, your
Beautifully
daughter,
said.
and
Thanks again, Gilbert. Take care.
they'll be successful. Just have faith in them.